So on occasion, I have gotten questions regarding collecting comics in the 1960s, and I've answered those questions. I get repeat questions sometimes. So I went through and I actually found some good questions that were asked by my pal Alan back a few years ago that I think were pretty cool. So I thought I'd show them to you.
Anachronic. I have a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
Because so when you collected back in the 60s and so on, I'm assuming there's less social media to like kind of give you that FOMO, like, oh, you have to buy this because someone else thinks it's cool. Did you have like a group of friends that were like, hey, you need to buy this book, even though it wasn't like in your wheelhouse, that you're like, all right, I'll start collecting that?
Well, there were some friends that read comic books, but primarily it was my best friend John, you know. And he's the guy, I might have mentioned this before in either one of my videos or some other video, maybe Gary B's, hot seat video, whatever. But he knew a lot more about comics than I did. He had some way of finding out about things that I had no clue. So he used to tell me, oh, the new Batman annual is coming out. We have to go get it, or that type of thing. And we would sit on the stoop and, buy our comics and trade them and read them and that type of thing. So there was no social media to speak of. I mean, the only social media was potentially your friends. And yeah, someone might say, oh, and that's how I found out about Spider-Man. Someone says, oh, you should be reading the Spider-Man book. And so I went to buy it and it was up to number 9 already. And then I started trying to look for the earlier ones. I only found number 5. I couldn't find any others at that point in time. So, so there wasn't kind of like eBay or things. You had to go to a bookstore, and if a bookstore had used comics there that they would sell for 5 cents or whatever, and if you found something you liked, you would get it. So the first social media that I would say was of any import was Stanley's soapbox. That was social media, but he would sit down there and he would talk to you and say things and whatever else, and it would affect what you would want to do and want to get. I mean, I was a huge Marvel fan in the 60s. Huge.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of it was because of the type of things that they had, people liking it, the stories that were there. It was immensely better stories than you saw in DC Comics at that time. So, and you got that from your friends. They would come out and say this or that, or something came up, and you'd go and take a look at it. So yeah, Alan, that was basically the social media of the time.
Yeah, interesting. So then, sorry, I have a quick follow-up question. In terms of like back issues, like, is it really only like the bookstores and whatever they had as used books, or did like the corner shop or comic book like shop also have back issues?
Not the only thing that I would consider be back issues. Sometimes they would keep issues there for a month or more, because if he didn't sell them, they in those days used to be able to get refunds for them by either ripping the cover off or the dress, the title dress off of it or whatever, that type of thing. So if you went to a newsstand, they probably did not have any issues past what was available at that time. But there were candy stores, as we used to call them.
Mm-hmm.
They sold newspapers. Some of them sold like they had like counters where you can actually buy like egg creams and sodas and things like that. And a lot of those used to have either to the side or to the back. They used to have these just basically kind of like these stands with the comics in there. And sometimes they would have some that were a month or two old. They wouldn't necessarily send them back right away. But otherwise than that, there was a store around the corner from my house where the guy would buy them for 2 cents and sell it for 5. And so I used to go there sometimes and look and see what he had, because instead of 10 cents or 12 cents, you can get a couple of comics for 10 cents.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy to think, Joe, it must be amazing to think there was a time and someone came up to you and they were like, you have to read this thing. It's called Spider-Man, and you didn't know what they were talking about.
Nope.
I don't know what that world is like. That's like, my mind is blowing over here.
And he was already out for like 10 months counting Amazing Fantasy 15.
Hasn't Spider-Man always been here? Like Then they
That's
start in the
right.
middle.
I
I'm like,
That's in the universe.
Don't destroy my world. Great questions, Alan. Thank you. That was awesome.
those are good questions, Al.
Yeah.